I could barely breathe, each shallow inhale sending sharp, searing pain through my chest as my mom drove me to Jefferson Memorial Hospital. The old car rattled over every bump in the road, and with each jolt, waves of agony radiated from my ribs, making my vision blur. My name is Sophia, and at just 15 years old, I had become an expert at hiding pain, masking the truth behind forced smiles and carefully rehearsed excuses. But this time was different. This time, the damage was too severe, too undeniable, even for me to conceal. My stepfather, Tom, had crossed a line, and the marks he left on my body told a story I could no longer silence. "Remember what we talked about?" my mom whispered, her voice trembling, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel with desperate intensity. "You fell down the stairs while carrying your laundry basket. That's all. We can't afford any questions, Sophie." Her words hung heavy in the air, a plea wrapped in fear. "Tom's medical insurance covers all of us." I nodded slightly, wincing as even that small movement sent pain shooting through my chest. The stair story had become our family's grim refrain, played on repeat every few months whenever Tom's anger boiled over. But stairs don't leave perfect boot-shaped bruises. They don't target the same spots with cruel precision, the way Tom did when he claimed he was teaching me respect. Each bruise, each mark, was a silent scream I'd learned to swallow. The emergency room was eerily quiet for a Tuesday night, the sterile hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence. Mom filled out the paperwork with shaking hands, her pen scratching against the forms as I sat carefully still, counting my breaths to keep the pain at bay. Shallow inhale, 1, 2. Careful exhale, 1, 2. Don't cry. Don't show pain. Don't tell. Those were the rules I'd lived by for years. Sophia Anderson, a nurse called, her voice gentle as she looked up from her clipboard. "Come with me, honey." Mom jumped up immediately, her voice tight with anxiety. "I'm coming too." She's just a bit shaken from her fall. The nurse, whose name tag read Linda, led us to a small examination room. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her kind eyes seemed to see right through me, making my heart race with unease. "Can you tell me what happened?" Linda asked, her pen poised over the chart, her tone calm but probing. Before I could speak, Mom jumped in, her words rushed. "She fell down the stairs carrying laundry. Just a silly accident." Linda's eyes never left my face, her gaze steady and unwavering. "Sophia, I need to check your ribs. Can you lift your shirt for me?" I hesitated, my heart pounding, knowing what she'd see. The fresh bruises from today mingled with older ones, a patchwork of violence in various stages of healing: yellow, green, and purple, like a grotesque watercolor painting. Mom stepped forward as if to stop the examination, but Linda's firm, quiet look made her pause. As I lifted my shirt, Linda's sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room. The bruises painted a map of cruelty across my torso, boot marks clear as day, fingerprints gripping my arms, and the unmistakable shape of a belt buckle etched into my back. "These aren't from stairs," Linda said softly, her fingers gently probing my ribs. When I winced, she nodded to herself, her expression resolute. "We need X-rays." "Now." Mom protested weakly, her voice faltering. "Is that really necessary?" "She's just bruised." But Linda was unyielding. "Mrs. Anderson, your daughter has difficulty breathing and significant bruising. X-rays are non-negotiable." The radiology department was one floor up, its cold, sterile air a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. As they positioned me for the chest X-rays, I caught a glimpse of myself in the machine's reflective surface. I looked small, fragile, like a bird that had flown into a window one too many times, wings broken and spirit battered. "Stay very still," the technician instructed, stepping behind the protective barrier. The machine hummed to life, its mechanical eye piercing through skin and muscle to reveal the truth beneath. I closed my eyes, haunted by the memory of Tom's laughter earlier that day as I crumpled to the floor. "Get up," he'd sneered. "Stop being dramatic." But I couldn't get up. Not this time. The pain was too intense, the effort to breathe too overwhelming. For once, even Mom had looked scared, her face pale as she realized this couldn't be swept away with another lie. Back in the examination room, we waited for the results, the air thick with tension. Mom kept checking her phone, likely fielding angry texts from Tom, wondering where we were. She'd told him we were grocery shopping, another lie in our house built on deception. Dr. Sarah Chin entered, her face serious as she clipped several X-rays to the light box on the wall. "Mrs. Anderson, Sophia, we need to discuss these results," she said, her voice steady but grave. She pointed to the images, her finger tracing white lines across my ribcage. "These are your current fractures," she explained, indicating 2 clear breaks. Then her finger moved to fainter lines, shadows of past injuries. "And these are previously healed fractures. I count 7 distinct breaks in various stages of healing, some potentially months or even years old." Mom's face went pale, her voice barely a whisper. "That's impossible. She's just clumsy. She falls." Dr. Chen's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. "Mrs. Anderson, these injuries are not consistent with falls. The pattern and placement indicate repeated, intentional trauma." I stared at the X-rays, at the stark black and white story they told. No amount of lies could erase what the machine had seen. My secrets, once buried in silence, were now exposed, written in broken bones and healing fractures. "I'm legally required to report this," Dr. Chen continued, reaching for her phone. "I've already contacted our hospital social worker, and we'll need to speak with the police." Mom stood up, panic flashing in her eyes. "No, you don't understand. We can't." "Tom will," she stopped, but Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed as she made a note. "Tom, your husband." In that moment, watching Mom struggle between protecting her husband and protecting me, I made a decision. For 3 years, I'd kept their secrets, swallowed their lies, hidden their truth. But the X-rays had given me something I'd never had before, proof. "Yes," I said, my voice stronger than I expected, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Tom did this. All of it." The room seemed to hold its breath, the weight of my words settling over us like a storm finally breaking. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Police officers arrived, speaking in hushed tones with Dr. Chin, while a social worker named Ms. Martinez sat with me, her presence calm and reassuring. Mom paced the small room like a caged animal, alternating between pleading looks at me and frantic texts to Tom. "Your X-rays tell a story," Ms. Martinez said gently, showing me a detailed report. "Each fracture has a timeline. We can match them to specific incidents. Would you like to tell me about them?" I stared at the dates listed on the paper, each one a marker of pain I'd tried to forget. March 15th, 3 broken ribs when Tom found out I'd joined the school drama club without his permission, his rage fueled by the idea of me having a life outside his control. July 8th, a fractured collarbone for coming home 10 minutes late, his hands gripping me with punishing force. December 24th, 2 cracked ribs on Christmas Eve when I accidentally dropped his favorite coffee mug, shattering his fragile sense of control. "He said no one would believe me," I whispered, my fingers tracing the paper where my broken bones were documented in cold, clinical detail. "He said I had no proof." Ms. Martinez's voice was steady, her eyes kind. "You have proof now, Sophia. The X-rays don't lie." A commotion outside the room snapped me out of my thoughts. Tom's voice boomed down the hospital corridor, his charm turned up to maximum, the mask of a concerned parent firmly in place. "I'm looking for my stepdaughter, Sophia Anderson. My wife called about an accident." Mom rushed to the door, but 2 police officers blocked her path. Through the small window, I could see Tom's familiar figure, still in his work boots, his face a carefully crafted picture of worry. "Sir," one officer said, his tone firm, "we need you to come with us." Tom's facade cracked, just for a moment. "What's this about?" "My daughter had a fall. I'm here to take her home." Dr. Chin stepped forward, holding my X-rays like a shield. "Mr. Anderson, these images show a pattern of abuse spanning approximately 3 years. Would you care to explain the boot-shaped bruises on your stepdaughter's ribs?" The change in Tom's expression was instant, the charm vanishing, replaced by the dark, familiar rage I'd seen countless times before pain exploded through my body. "This is ridiculous," he snarled. "She's clumsy. Always has been. Sarah, tell them." Mom stood frozen, her eyes darting between Tom and the X-rays Dr. Chen held. I could see the moment reality broke through her protective shell of denial. "7 healing fractures," she whispered, mostly to herself. "7 times you hurt her." Officer Reynolds spoke quietly, his words cutting through the tension. "Mrs. Anderson, we found the belt in your home. The buckle matches the marks on your daughter's back perfectly. Your husband is under arrest." As they led Tom away in handcuffs, his eyes locked on me through the window, his lips forming a silent threat. "You'll regret this." But for the first time, his words felt hollow, powerless. He couldn't hurt what the X-rays had already exposed. Dr. Chen supervised as a nurse carefully wrapped my ribs, her touch gentle but precise. "You'll need to follow up with our orthopedic specialists," she explained. "And Sophia, we're also referring you to Dr. Patel, one of our best trauma counselors." I nodded, still processing the whirlwind of the night. "What happens now?" I asked Ms. Martinez, watching Mom sink into a chair, her face buried in her hands, overwhelmed by guilt and fear. "You'll need a safe place to stay while we investigate," Ms. Martinez replied. "Is there family you can go to?" I thought of my Aunt Kate, Mom's sister, who Tom had forbidden us from seeing 2 years ago, her warm smile a distant memory. "My aunt," I said. "She lives 2 hours away." Ms. Martinez nodded, already dialing. "We'll contact her. In the meantime, you'll stay in our pediatric ward. You need rest and monitoring for those ribs anyway." Later that night, in the quiet of the hospital room, Mom finally broke her silence. Her voice was raw, heavy with regret. "I didn't want to see it, Sophie. Every time you got hurt, I made excuses, told myself it couldn't be what it looked like. I failed you." I looked at her, seeing the fear and shame in her eyes, and for the first time, I understood that she had been trapped too, caught in a web of denial and fear, just in different ways. "You were afraid too," I said softly, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Fear isn't an excuse," she replied, her tone firm with resolve. "I'm your mother. I should have protected you. But I promise you this, Sophie, I'll never fail you again." Her words, though heavy with guilt, carried a spark of hope, a vow to rebuild what had been broken. The room's TV flickered in the background, its soft hum interrupted by a breaking news alert. My stomach dropped as Tom's face appeared on the screen, his polished businessman persona now tainted by the truth. Local businessman Thomas Anderson was arrested today on charges of child abuse, the reporter announced, her voice crisp and professional. Sources say medical evidence, specifically X-ray images, revealed a long-term pattern of physical abuse. Mom reached to turn off the TV, but I stopped her. "No," I said firmly. "Let it play. Everyone should see who he really is." The night nurse brought me pain medication and a small pudding cup, her smile warm and reassuring. As she checked my vitals, she leaned in slightly. "You know what we call X-rays in the medical field? Truth tellers. Because bones don't lie, and they never forget." I looked down at my wrapped ribs, thinking about all the secrets they'd kept and finally revealed. Tom had been right about one thing: no one would have believed just my word against his. But he hadn't counted on the silent testimony of my bones, captured forever in black and white. 6 months later, I sat in a courthouse, my ribs fully healed, but my memories still sharp, like shards of glass buried deep. The prosecutor had built a strong case around my X-rays, now displayed on large screens for the jury to see. Each image was a chapter in my story, each healed fracture a testament to survival. Aunt Kate sat beside me, her hand steady on my shoulder, a quiet source of strength. After that night in the hospital, she'd taken both Mom and me in, offering us a sanctuary where sudden movements didn't make me flinch and closed doors stayed unlocked. Her home had become a haven, a place to rebuild our lives piece by piece. The prosecutor addressed the jury, his voice commanding yet compassionate. "The evidence before you shows not just one incident of abuse, but a calculated pattern spanning years. The X-rays tell us what this child couldn't, a story of systematic violence hidden behind closed doors. Tom sat at the defense table, his expensive suit unable to hide how jail had diminished him. He tried to claim my injuries were from reckless behavior, attention-seeking stunts, but the medical experts dismantled his lies with precision. Dr. Chin testified about the night everything changed, her voice clear and unwavering. The pattern of injuries was inconsistent with accidental trauma. The boot marks on her ribs matched the defendant's work boots exactly. Most telling were the historical fractures, each one documented in the X-rays like chapters in a book of abuse. Mom's testimony was harder to watch. She broke down on the stand, her voice choked with sobs. "I thought I was protecting our family," she said. "But I was just protecting him while he hurt my baby." The trial had made headlines, not just for the abuse, but for how it was uncovered. X-ray justice, the papers called it, a term that spread across news outlets and sparked conversations about the role of medical evidence in exposing abuse. When it was my turn to give my victim impact statement, I stood slowly, facing the jury rather than Tom. My voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with each word. For 3 years, I lived in fear. Every day was a countdown to the next injury, the next lie, the next cover-up. But machines don't lie. X-rays don't make excuses. They simply show the truth, even when people refuse to see it. The jury took only 2 hours to reach their verdict, guilty on all counts. As the judge prepared to announce sentencing, Tom's attorney made one last plea for leniency. "Your Honor, my client has no prior criminal record." The judge held up one of my X-rays, her expression stern. "No, he just wasn't caught. 20 years with no possibility of parole for 15. The evidence of long-term abuse is literally written in the victim's bones." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed with cameras and microphones, their questions a blur. The case had sparked a national conversation about domestic violence and the power of medical evidence. I'd received letters from other survivors, many inspired to seek help after hearing my story. One reporter asked, "What would you say to other kids living in abusive homes?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. Truth leaves marks, maybe not always visible ones, but they're there. Sometimes it takes a machine to show what humans don't want to see. Don't stop trying to tell your truth. My case had changed more than just my life. Medical schools began using it to train doctors on spotting signs of abuse, and child protection agencies updated their protocols to include comprehensive imaging in suspected abuse cases. Mom started working at a domestic violence shelter, using our story to help other families escape cycles of abuse. She was learning to forgive herself, though the guilt still lingered in quiet moments. Every X-ray was a cry for help, she told me once, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I just didn't want to hear it until someone else showed me how to listen. Aunt Kate helped us find our own apartment near her house, close enough for support, but separate enough for independence. My new room had wide windows and no locks on the door, a small but powerful symbol of freedom. On the wall, I hung a framed X-ray, my last one, showing fully healed ribs. "Why keep it?" Mom asked when I framed it. "Because it's the one that saved us," I explained. "It's not just a picture of broken bones. It's a picture of breaking free." Today, I'm starting my junior year of high school, my steps lighter, my heart a little less heavy. The nightmares are less frequent now, thanks to therapy and the passage of time. I joined a support group for teenage survivors, where we share stories of healing, both the physical scars and the emotional wounds that take longer to mend. Dr. Chin still checks on me occasionally, her kindness a steady anchor. Last week, she invited me to speak to a group of medical students about recognizing signs of abuse. "Your case changed protocols," she told me. "Now we know better what to look for, what questions to ask, what lies might hide behind accidents and falls." The X-ray on my wall remains a reminder, not of pain, but of liberation. Sometimes, late at night, I look at it and think about how something as simple as a machine seeing through flesh to bone changed everything. Tom had been right about one thing: no one would have believed just my word against his. But he never counted on science having my back. My ribs are strong now, fully healed and ready to support whatever comes next. Each breath is a reminder, I am free. I am safe. And my truth is finally seen, written in the unshakable evidence of my own bones. The X-ray machine gave me a voice when I had none, a way to speak when words alone weren't enough. And now, as I move forward, I carry that truth with me, not as a burden, but as a badge of survival. My story isn't just mine anymore. It's a beacon for others, a call to keep fighting, to keep speaking, to keep believing that the truth will always find a way to shine through. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.